Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Deve Gora Prachane Nirvishesha Shunyavani Paschatya Shatani Manchakaupatarubhyascha Viva Sindhura Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagapate Gopesha Gopikakanta Radhakanta Namostute Tata Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishavanu Sute Devi Pranamami Devi Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gora Ramaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya It is said, by the way, that if you have insomnia, you know what is insomnia?
Rečeno je da ukoliko imamo insomniju, znate li šta je insomnija? Ili nesanica?
You just chant that mantra.
Da samo trebate pjevati tu mantru.
Why? Because we associate it with Bhagavatam class.
Zašto? Zato što se družimo sa predavanjem iz Bhagavatama.
Which is the time for looking to sleep, isn't it?
Što je inače vrijeme za odlazak u san, ali malo što će dodajte, to ovisi od ovoga.
Now I'm in trouble. Narayanam namaskritya Naram Chaya Narottama Deving Saraswating Vyasa Tato Jayamudiraye Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So, on this auspicious morning of Ratha Yatra,
Ovog povoljnog jutra, kada ćemo danas imati Ratha Yatru,
I've chosen a verse which has nothing to do with Ratha Yatra.
izabrao sam stih koji nema nikakve veze sa Ratha Yatrom.
But I do hope that we can be inspired also for Ratha Yatra this afternoon in Morisat.
Ali vjerujem da i nadam se da ćemo ovim stihom ipak biti inspirirani za današnju Ratha Yatru u popodnevnim satima u Novom Sadu.
Perhaps my comments will serve that purpose if Krishna wills, and assembled Vaishnavas and senior Vaishnavas will.
Ako Krishna bude želio i okupljeni Vajšnave i pogotovo stari Vajšnave, nadam se da će moji komentari služiti toj svrsi.
I've chosen a verse spoken by Matsya Avatar.
Izabrao sam stih koji je izgovorio Matsya Avatar.
And he's speaking to his devotee Satyavrata, King Satyavrata.
I on se obraća svome bhakti kralju Satyavrati.
And it goes like this. Madiyam Mahimanam Cha Param Brahmeti Shabditam Vatsyasi Anugrihitam Me Samprashnair Vivritam Pridi Madiyam pertaining to me.
Koji se odnosi na mene.
Mahimanam glories.
Slave.
Cha and
I.
Param Brahma, the supreme Brahman, the absolute truth.
Svevišnji Brahman, apsolutna istina.
Iti, thus.
Tako.
Shabdidam, celebrated.
Slavljeni.
Detsyasi, you shall understand.
Razumjet ćeš.
Anugrihitam, being favored.
U milosti.
By me.
Mojovi.
Samprashnai, by inquiries.
Raspitivanjima.
Vivritam, thoroughly explained.
Detaljno objašnjeno.
Ready within the heart.
Unutar srca.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Translation. You will be thoroughly advised and favored by me, and because of your inquiries, everything about my glories, which are known as Param Brahma, will be manifest within your heart. Thus, you will know everything about me.
Prijevod i smisla njegove božanske milosti, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Detaljno ćeš biti posavjetovan i u mojoj milosti zbog tvojih raspitivanja. Sve u vezi mojih slava, što je poznato kao param brahma, će biti manifestirano unutar tvog srca. Na taj način ćeš znati sve o meni.
Excuse me, purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Sarvasya Chaham Riddhi Sanivishto Matta Smriti Gyana Apohanam Cha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paramatma, is situated in everyone's heart, and from him come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. The Lord reveals himself in proportion to one's surrender to him. Ye yata mam prapadyante tangs tadaiva vajanyam. In responsive cooperation, the Lord reveals himself in proportion to one's surrender. That which is revealed to one who fully surrenders is different from what is revealed to one who surrenders partially. Everyone naturally surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, either directly or indirectly. The conditioned soul surrenders to the law of nature in material existence. But when one fully surrenders to the Lord, material nature does not act upon him. Such a fully surrendered soul is favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly. Mam eva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarante. One who is fully surrendered to the Lord has no fear of the modes of material nature, for everything is but an expansion of the Lord's glories. I'll read that again. One who has fully surrendered to the Lord has no fear of the modes of material nature, for everything is but an expansion of the Lord's glories. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. And these glories are gradually revealed and realized. The Lord is the supreme purifier, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan. The more one is purified and the more one wants to know about the Supreme, the more the Lord reveals to him. Full knowledge of Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan is revealed to the pure devotees. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 10:11, Te sham evanukam partam aham ajnana jantam nashayam yatma vavasto jnana dipena vasvata. Out of compassion for them, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. It's up to you.
Smisao. Kao što je rečeno u Bhagavad Giti 15.15, Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sani Viško, Matak Smritim Gjanama Pohanča. Svevišnja božanska osoba, Paramatma, je smještena u svačijem srcu i od njega dolazi sjećanje, znanje i zaborav. Gospodin se razotkriva u onom omjeru kako mu se neko predaje. Je jadha mam prapadjam te tam spahajva pađamja ham. Bhagavad Gita 4.11. U uzvratnoj saradnji Gospodin se razotkriva u onoj mjeri kako mu se neko predaje. Ono što se razotkrije onome koji se potpuno preda se razlikuje od onoga koji se samo djelomično preda. Svako se prirodno predaje svevišnjoj božanskoj osobi, bilo direktno ili posredno. Uvjetovana duša se predaje zakonima materijalne prirode, ali kada se osoba potpuno preda Gospodinu, materijalna priroda ne djeluje na njega. Takva potpuno predana duša je na milosti svevišnje božanske osobe direktno, Mam eva je prapadyante, mayam ekam tarantite, Bhagavad Gita 7.14. Onaj ko se potpuno predao Gospodinu, nema straha od guna materijalne prirode, zato što je sve samo ekspanzija Gospodinovih slava. Maharađa ovu rečenicu još jednom ponovio. Onaj koji se potpuno predao Gospodinu, nema straha od materijalnih guna prirode, jer je sve samo ekspanzija Gospodinovih slava. Sarvam Khau Idam Brahman. I one, i te slave, se postepeno razotkrivaju i spoznaju. Gospodin je vrhovna svevišnja osoba koja pročišćava Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan, Bhagavad Gita 10.12. Što je osoba više pročišćena i više želi da zna o svevišnjem, tomu se više Gospodine razotkriva. Potpuno znanje o Brahman, Paramatmi i Bhagavanu se razotkriva čistim baktama. Gospodin kaže u Bhagavad Giti 10.11 Tešam evam kampartam aham agyana jam tamaha naša yami atma bhava sto dhyana dipena bhasvata. Iz svoje samilosti prema njima, ja koji počinam u njihovim srcima, uništavam sa svjetlom bakljom znanja tamu koja potiče od neznanja.
There's feedback somewhere. Madiyam Mahimanam Cha Param Brahmeti Shabdam Vetsyasyanugrahitam Me Samprashnaya Vibritam Priti. You will be thoroughly advised and favored by me, and because of your inquiries, everything about my glories, which are known as Param Brahma, will be manifest within your heart. Thus, you will know everything about me.
Još jedan prijevod. Ti ćeš biti detaljno posavjetovan i u mojoj milosti. I zbog tvojih raspitivanja, sve u vezi mojih slava, što je poznato kao Param Brahma, će biti manifestirano unutar tvoga srca. Na taj način ćeš znati sve o meni.
King Satyavrata has been experiencing many surprises.
Kralj Satyavrata je kušao mnoga iznenađenja.
You know the story of his dealing with this Matsya avatar, beginning with finding this tiny fish in the palms of his hands.
Vjerovatno znate priču o njegovom odnosu sa Matsya avatarom, koja počinje tako što je on pronašao malu ribicu u svojim dlanovima.
Perhaps the initial surprise was that the fish could speak.
Vjerovatno je prvobitno iznenađenje bilo upravo to da je riba mogla govoriti.
And what did he say? He said, "Please protect me."
I ono što je riba rekla je bilo, molim te, zaštiti me.
This is a theme which is really what I want to talk about, to cut to the quick. But before we get to that, briefly, what is the reassurance that the Lord is making here?
To je tema o kojoj bih danas volio da razgovaramo, ali da bi došli do nje, ukratko ćemo samo predstaviti priču.
He's giving a reassurance. The reassurance is that you will understand everything, and the reason you'll understand is because of your inquiries, your persistent inquiries, and my mercy.
Gospodin se obraća kralju Satyavrati u obliku svoje inkarnacije ribe i govori da će kralj Satyavrata biti u stanju da razumije sve i da će dobiti sve savjete upravo zato što je u milosti Gospodina, a sve to zato što se on raspitivao o svemu tome.
Once Matsya got to his full size, and Satyavrata understood that he's not dealing with any ordinary fish, he's dealing with the Supreme Lord. The Lord gives him some specific instructions.
Kada je već Matsya poprimio svoj pravi oblik, koji je oblik ogromne ribe, i kada je kralj Satyavrata shvatio da se ne radi o običnom živom biću, nego o svevišnjoj božanskoj osobi, U tom trenutku je kralj Satyavata primio i određene upute ili instrukcije od Matje Avatara.
And for us in the West who have been brought up in a culture very much influenced by the Judeo-Christian tradition, much of this story rings parallel or similar to the story of Noah and the flood that we find in.
I za sve nas koji smo manje više sa zapada odrasli u judeo-kršćanskoj tradiciji, ova priča jako podsjeća na priču iz Biblije koja govori o Noji i Nojinoj arki.
In that account, Noah doesn't speak of any fish, but he is given instruction to build a ship. In the case of the Bhagavatam, Matsya says, I will send you a ship, don't worry, you don't have to build one.
U priči iz Biblije, Noa je dobio instrukcije da izgradi brod. U priči iz Bhagavatama, Matsya Avatar se obraća kralju Satyavati i kaže mu, ne brini ništa, ja ću ti poslati brod. Ne moraš da ga gradiš sam.
Actually, scholars say that the size of the ship specified in the Bible could not possibly have been built purely out of wood. It was too big, it would have fallen apart.
U stvari, učenjaci kažu da arka ili brod koji je Noa izgradio uopće nije mogla biti izgrađena jednostavno od drveta, jer je tolikih razmjera da bi ne mogla opstati, mogla bi se urušiti. Prevelika bi bila.
That was a footnote.
To je bila samo fusnota.
Not so relevant to our discussion.
Nije toliko relevantna za naš razgovor.
But it is an interesting parallel, and many have noticed this. Some of the Christian missionaries to India, they took it that what is described in the Puranas is a perverted reflection, as we would say, of the original pure account, which is in the Bible.
I mnogima je zapalo za oko upravo to da priče imaju određene sličnosti i neki kršćanski misionari koji su posjećivali prostore današnje Indije su priču o Matsya Avataru svrstali u red onih iskrivljenih odraza izvorne, kako oni kažu, čiste verzije priče iz Biblije.
And another footnote related to that version from the Bible, there's a cartoon which shows God in heaven, in the clouds, speaking to his archangel who is taking notes, and he's looking at the earth in the distance.
I još jedna fusnota u vezi s tim, postoji jedan crtani film u kojem Bog, koji se nalazi negdje iznad oblaka, se obraća svom arkanđelu koji zapisuje njegove upute i on mu daje upute u vezi sa ovim zbivanjima.
And he's looking very angry.
Angel or God?
God.
I Bog izgleda vrlo ljutit.
And he says, and this time, no ark.
I u tom crtanom filmu on kaže i ovaj put bez arke.
So,
bez broda.
Bez broda. So, here we have this wonderful exchange, however, between Satyavrata and the Lord, who takes on this form of a fish.
Međutim, ovdje imamo jednu prekrasnu ljubavnu razmjenu između kralja Satyavrate, Krishna Bhakte, i samog gospodina koji za ovu priliku uzima oblik ribe.
One more point to call attention to before I go to my main subject. In the purport, Prabhupada gives a very interesting phrase.
Još jedna poanta koju bih volio da kažem prije nego što pređem na glavnu poantu je da je u smislu Šrila Prabhupada dao interesantnu frazu.
This is the third or fourth sentence. He says, in responsive cooperation, the Lord reveals himself in proportion to one's surrender.
Šrila Prabhupada kaže, u uzvratnoj saradnji Gospodin se razotkriva u onom omjeru kako mu se osoba ili bakta predaje.
What's the word for cooperation?
Saradnja ili suradnja. Saradnja.
Saradnja. Saradnja. Saradnja. Okay.
That's Serbian and Croatian is suradnja. Slight difference. One word.
Okay. And responsive, saradnja.
Uzvratna.
Uzvratna.
In this specific case, uzvratna saradnja.
Uzvratna saradnja. So this is a nice phrase.
Dakle, ovo je lijepa fraza.
Because it brings together the idea of reciprocation.
Jer stavlja u centar razgovora ideju o reciprocitetu.
And the idea of working together.
I ideju o radu, zajedničkom radu.
A lot of times we talk about cooperation among devotees to serve Krishna.
U mnogo navrata govorimo o saradnji među baktama radi službe Krishnu.
But here the Lord is saying, we can cooperate, the Lord and the devotees. We can all cooperate.
Ali ovdje Gospodin govori o nama u smislu Gospodinu i bakti. Gospodin i bakta mogu sarađivati.
And I think this brings some light on Krishna's statement, yeyatamam prapadyante. Of course, Prabhupada's emphasizing when there is full surrender, then there's no fear on the part of the devotee. But here we get the idea that the Lord is getting involved in the service of the devotee.
I ovdje se naravno možemo osvrnuti na stih iz Bhagavad Gite, yeyatamam prapadyante, gdje naravno Prabhupada također u sljedećoj rečenici već govori da onaj koji se potpuno preda nema nikakvog razloga za strah. Ali to znači da se Krishna uključuje u službu bakte.
It's a team.
That's
Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to shift a little bit to the subject I promised to reflect on, and that is protection.
Sada ću se posvetiti temi o kojoj sam obećao da ću govoriti, a to je zaštita.
And the story of Satyavrata Muni's protection of Matsya, I think, is very fitting.
Mislim da je ova priča u kojoj Satyavrata Muni pruža zaštitu ribi vrlo prikladna.
We hear a lot, especially in Srila Prabhupada's purports, about the importance of protection of the weaker members of society, and especially he refers to cows.
Mnogo slušamo u Srila Prabhupadovim komentarima o potrebi za zaštitom slabijih članova društva, posebno on pominje krave i brahmane.
And here we have a case of fish protection.
I ovdje imamo slučaj zaštite ribe.
Well, you may say, no, but he's no ordinary fish.
Dobro, možemo reći, a ne, to nije baš obična riba.
But either we can say that's beside the point, or that is exactly the point.
Možemo da kažemo da to nije poanta ili da to je baš poanta o kojoj govorimo.
That it is an apparently ordinary fish, and he is requesting protection.
Ta riba se doima kao obična riba, ali ona traži zaštitu.
So, the point I want to make is simple, that I think we can find within the Bhagavatam such episodes which are calling attention to a possibility, or not just a possibility, a need for devotees to have a sense of obligation for protection of the environment.
I to je poanta koja se često također u Bhagavatamu može sresti, gdje se govori o mogućnosti, i ne samo mogućnosti, nego i o potrebi da bakte razviju svijest o zaštiti okoliša.
A few days ago, the Pope Francis, the head of the Roman Catholic Church, issued an encyclical letter.
Prije par dana je Papa Franjo, poglavar Rimokatoličke crkve, izdao jedno cirkularno pismo.
And this letter, this encyclical, has been anticipated for quite some time by the environmental movement, if you like, the broadly speaking environmentalism movement.
I to pismo je rezultat već dužih napora takozvanog pokreta za zaštitu okoliša.
It's a quite long letter in English translation. In the version I have, it's 106 pages.
To je jako dugo pismo i na engleskom jeziku, verziju koju ja imam, vidim da ima 106 stranica.
And I haven't read it all yet.
I nisam to sve još do sada pročitao.
But I'm anticipating what it lacks.
Ali se pitam šta u tome svemu nedostaje.
I expect that it will lack statements which we as Vaishnavas would dearly wish that he would have included about the protection of animals.
Pretpostavljam da u tom pismu nedostaje ono što bismo mi kao Vajšnave svi sretni voljeli da bude uključeno u takvo pismo, u takvu rezoluciju, a da se tiče zaštite životinja.
And the lack or of the necessity, the lack of necessity, yeah, that's what I mean, the lack of necessity to eat animals.
I nedostatak potrebe da se jedu životinje.
But I doubt that he will say that.
Ali sumnjam da će on to reći u pismu.
However, he does say some things which I think are worth our attending to because so many people pay serious attention to what he does say.
Međutim, on ipak govori neke stvari za koje smatram da bismo im i mi trebali ukazati interes i pažnju, jer on je osoba na takvom položaju gdje ga mnogi drugi ljudi slijede.
In the beginning, or very near the beginning of the encyclical, he glorifies Saint Francis of Assisi and his environmental spirit.
Na početku tog pisma on slavi svetog Franju Asiškog u tom duhu odnosa prema okruženju ili okolišu.
And there he says, if we approach nature, maybe I'll just read and then I'll hand this to you. Yeah.
Okay.
If we approach nature and the environment without this openness to awe and wonder, if we no longer speak the language of fraternity and beauty in our relationship with the world, our attitude will be that of masters, consumers, ruthless exploiters, unable to set limits on their immediate needs. By contrast, if we feel intimately united with all that exists, then sobriety and care will well up spontaneously. The poverty and austerity of St. Francis were no mere veneer of asceticism, but something much more radical, a refusal to turn reality into an object simply to be used and controlled.
Ako priđemo prirodi i okolišu bez te otvorenosti da sa zapanjenošću i čuđenjem gledamo na nju, ako više ne govorimo jezik oca, jezik bratstva i ljepotu u našem odnosu sa svijetom, naš stav će biti stav gospodara, konzumera ili korisnika, okrutnih iskorištavača koji nisu u stanju da postave granice svojim direktnim potrebama. Suprotno tome, ako osjećamo intimnu ujedinjenost sa svime što postoji, tada će trezvenost i briga rasti spontano narasti. Siromaštvo i strogost svetog Franje Asiškog nisu bili čisti asketizam, nisu bili obični asketizam. Nisu bili čisti puki pokrov asketizma. Ali nešto mnogo radikalnije od toga. Odbijanje da se... This is the last few words. Odbijanje da se stvarnost pretvori u predmet koji mi jednostavno trebamo iskoristiti i kontrolirati.
Thank you. The Pope is a good writer, or he has good editors.
Papa je dobar pisac ili ima dobre editore.
Just one more statement, very brief, that I want to quote or read from this, which I think is relevant for us.
I još samo jedna izjava koju bih volio da citiram i pročitam i mislim da je relevantna za ovu našu diskusiju.
He says, here I want to recognize, encourage, and thank all those striving in countless ways to guarantee the protection of the home which we all share.
Ovdje želim da prepoznam, da ohrabrim i da zahvalim svim onima koji se snažno trude da zaštite dom koji svi mi zajedno dijelimo.
And then a couple of sentences later he invites dialogue.
I nakon par dodatnih rečenica on poziva na dijalog.
A dialogue about how we are shaping the future of our planet.
Dijalog u kojem ćemo razgovarati o oblikovanju budućnosti naše planete.
So I thought this is interesting. I didn't want to turn this into a lesson in Catholic theology. Just I think it's nice to be aware that this sort of discussion is going on.
Nadam se da je ovo interesantno. Nisam želio da se ovo pretvori u lekciju iz katoličke teologije, ali mislim da je interesantno da se zna šta se dešava oko nas.
And we have a lot to say on this subject.
A mi bismo imali mnogo toga za reći na ovu temu.
We have a lot to say which is important.
Mi imamo mnogo toga za reći što je važno.
It's so important that we should know how to say it.
I toliko je važno da mi trebamo i znati kako to reći.
And we should find ways to say it in ways that it will reach to people.
I trebamo i pronaći načine kako to reći, kako bi ta naša poruka dostigla ljude.
More and more people are seeing the situation of the planet as urgent.
Sve više i više ljudi shvata da je situacija povezana s našom planetom urgentne prirode.
And that sense of urgency is an opportunity because it opens people's ears.
I ta urgentnost je također i prilika jer ona otvara uši ljudi.
People understand there's been so much talk, so many conferences, so many resolutions, and this prophet says something, resolutions, no solutions.
I toliko tih govora se na tu temu već dešava, toliko konferencija, toliko rezolucija se donosi i kao što Prabhupada kaže, rezolucija, nema solucije ili rješenja.
I've been thinking about this lately because of a presentation that I'm preparing on animal experimentation.
O tome sam nedavno dosta razmišljao zbog toga što pripremam prezentaciju na temu eksperimentiranja na životinjama.
This will be a conference in Oxford with the Oxford Center for Animal Ethics.
To će biti konferencija na Oxfordu pri Oxfordskoj katedri za etiku povezanu s životinjama.
And this organization has written a kind of manifesto which is about 60 pages long. It's a very, very strong statement saying animal experimentation should be stopped completely.
I ta organizacija je izdala jedan manifest koji je na 60 stranica snažnu poruku poslao da se sva moguća testiranja nad životinjama moraju zaustaviti.
So I've been preparing. The title of my presentation is Igniting Hanuman's Tail.
I ja sam pripremao prezentaciju koja je dio cijele te priče, a ona je povezana sa paljenjem Hanumanovog repa.
So we all know that story.
Mi naravno svi znamo tu priču.
It's a story of, well, in this context we could say it's a story of animal revenge.
Naravno, u ovom kontekstu tu priču možemo nazvati kao priča gdje životinje pružaju osvetu.
Okay, I won't go into that so much, but just to say, I think it's important for us to reflect on such issues.
Neću toliko ulaziti u tu temu, ali mislim da je za nas jako bitno da se osvrnemo na ta pitanja.
It's estimated that animal testing kills some 115 million animals per year around the planet.
Procjenjuje se da kroz testiranja na životinjama nekih 115 miliona životinja biva ubijeno svake godine na planeti Zemlji.
That's of course only a fraction of the animals that are killed for eating.
Naravno, to je samo dio onog broja životinja koje se ubijaju radi jedenja.
But I think this is very interesting that one Indian thinker, scholar, a very articulate speaker on modern science named Shiv Vishwanathan has made an interesting comment.
I jedan indijski scholar koji je dosta rekao na tu temu, koji se zove Shiv Vishwanathan, je dao jednu interesantnu izjavu u vezi s tim.
Because he's been observing how science and technology have sort of come into India and taken over.
On je posmatrao kako nauka i tehnologija postepeno dolazi u Indiju i kako je preplavljuju.
And he's not entirely against these things.
I on nije u potpunosti protiv tih stvari.
But his concern is that it is being done on a level which does not allow for control by thinking people.
Ali on se bori za to da se ta tehnologija i nauka unese u svakodnevni život na taj način da se ipak ne omogući onim ljudima koji razmišljaju da kontroliraju.
And in one article that he writes, he waxes radical.
I u jednom članku koji on piše, on radikalno se obraća.
He says that vivisection, which means animal experimentation, is at the very core of a society which is genocidal.
Vivisekcija koja se bavi testiranjem na životinjama je u samom srcu društva koje je inače genocidno.
And vivisection, what he's saying by this is that what vivisection does, which means, yes, animal experimentation, it objectifies, it makes into an object the animal which is being, dissected and studied and so on.
Vivisekcija po njegovom objašnjenju objektivizira životinje na taj način da one postaju objekat.
And this is just a short step away from objectifying people and making people into objects for experimentation, social experimentation.
Predmet određenih eksperimenata i to je samo korak do toga da i ljudi postanu predmet eksperimentiranja.
And we have seen that in Europe during the time of the Nazis.
I to smo već mogli da svjedočimo u Europi tokom vremena nacista.
And he makes that connection too. And it's not very far from there to exterminating human beings.
I on također to ističe, taj primjer, i onda kaže od te razine nije tako daleka eksterminacija, uništenje ljudske populacije.
So one other scholar has argued, also quite strongly, that what we see today are two movements with regard to the protection of animals.
I jedan drugi učenjak je rekao da ono što vidimo danas su dva pokreta u vezi sa zaštitom životinja.
One is the animal welfare group.
Jedna grupa je grupa koja se bavi dobrobiti životinja.
And the other group are the animal rights group.
A druga je grupa koja se bavi pravima životinja.
And he says the animal welfare people are saying, let's make conditions for animals as nice as possible, also when they're being experimented upon.
Jedna grupa koja se bavi dobrobiti životinja kaže hajdemo postaviti uvjete za život životinja što su bolji mogući čak i u vrijeme kada se na njima vrše eksperimenti.
Let's make laws so that the animals that are being experimented on will get bigger cages.
Hajmo napraviti zakone da one životinje nad kojima se vrše eksperimenti dobiju veće kaveze.
And of course we want that animal experimentation be stopped entirely, but that's not going to happen. We need to be incremental and get people to appreciate, become more aware, and then eventually it will all disappear.
I oni naravno dalje nastavljaju i kažu naravno da ne možemo zaustaviti u potpunosti eksperimentiranje na životinjama, ali možemo raditi barem postupno kako bi malo pomalo društvo steklo svijest o tome šta se dešava. Pa u toj prvoj fazi da pružimo što bolje uvjete životinjama koje bivaju predmet eksperimenata.
But this particular author, scholar, argues that is completely wrong-headed.
Ali taj konkretni učenjak ističe da je to potpuno pogrešan put.
Rather, it only perpetuates the problem.
Da u stvari taj način još više zavitlava ili nastavlja taj problem.
But on the other side we have the animal rights people, and unfortunately the kind of argumentation that goes for animal rights doesn't entirely ring strongly with thoughtful people.
Ali s druge strane imamo tu grupu koja se bavi pravima životinja i ona se ne poklapa baš sa ovim stavom ljudi koji promišljaju.
And I think this is where we come in.
I mislim da tu mi možemo stupiti na scenu.
Because it's all very simple.
Jer je sve vrlo jednostavno.
Every living entity is an eternal atma, eternal soul, conscious, sentient, and therefore deserving to progress in their path of protection.
I svako živo biće je u suštini atma ili vječna duhovna duša koja je na svome putu nazad povratka Bogu.
So these are, for us simple and obvious points, but it's not simple and obvious for so many of these people who are, on the other hand, so very much concerned about
I naravno te poante su nama vrlo jasne, ali nažalost nisu jasne svim tim ljudima koji su navodno jako zabrinuti za okoliš.
So I don't want to go on too long. I think all I want to say here is perhaps we have something to learn from these people who are so terribly concerned, so greatly concerned for the welfare of the world.
I očuvanje okoliša. Ja neću dalje produbljivati ovu diskusiju, samo sam želio da kažem da se i od ovih ljudi koji žele dobrobit na svijetu ili okolišu mi možemo mnogo toga naučiti.
And surely the whole world has so much to learn from our Vaishnava acharyas and from Srimad Bhagavatam to come to what is clearly simple solution to these problems.
A zasigurno kompletan svijet može naučiti mnogo toga od nas, Vajšnava, za ono što njih mori, a nama su to zaista problemi koji mogu se vrlo jednostavnim rješenjima prevazići.
And so what we need to do is to plant seeds, to implant in people an idea that there is an alternative.
I ono što mi trebamo učiniti, mi trebamo posijati sjeme, infiltrirati se među te ljude kako bi im dali do znanja da postoji alternativa.
And it's a spiritual alternative.
A to je spiritualna ili duhovna alternativa.
And that's what we are doing this afternoon in Novi Sad with Sri Sri Jagannath Subhadra Baladev's presence.
I to je ono što ćemo danas raditi u popodnevnim satima u Novom Sadu uz prisustvo Sri Sri Jagannath Baladeva Subhadra.
What we do when there is Ratha Yatra is more than anything else, we leave people with some impression.
Ono što radimo tokom jatre je da ostavljamo ljude sa određenim dojmom, određenim utiskom.
And the essential impression is, well, for some it might be, oh, these people really look crazy.
I suštinski dojam ili impresija može biti za neke, ovi ljudi zaista izgledaju ludo.
But on a deeper level they say, these people are happy.
Ali na dubljem nivou oni će reći, ej, ovi ljudi su zaista sretni.
And on that level there may be a question, why are they so happy?
A na tom nivou mogu si postaviti pitanje, pa zašto su oni tako sretni?
Let me find out.
Daj da se raspitamo o tome.
Maybe not today, maybe next day, next week. Somewhere, somehow in their lives they'll meet another devotee and think, oh yeah, those crazy artists. Let me find out.
Možda ne baš danas ili sutra ili prekosutra, ali će prije ili kasnije negdje u njihovim glavama ostati pohranjena ta informacija da kad sretnu nekog baktu, htjeće da pitaju, hej, pa vi ludi Hare Krishna, šta ste radili, daj da nešto saznamo o tome i onda će biti prirodno izloženi našem znanju.
So I would like to suggest, from getting back to our verse, that one way we may read this, this plea from Matsya, please help.
I sada bih sugerirao, možemo se vratiti na naš stih, na taj apel od Matsije, molim te, pomozi mi.
We can, without disregarding the literal meaning, we can also appreciate what is called the tropological sense.
Bez da doslovno značenje želimo izbjeći, ovdje možemo da cijenimo ono što se zove antropološki smisao.
No.
Oprostite, tropološki.
Which means inviting appreciation of a moral message.
Što znači cijeniti moralnu poruku povezanu s okruženjem.
We may see Matsya as representing the fish, and beyond the fish, representing all animals.
Možemo vidjeti Matsiju koja predstavlja ribe i kao predstavnik riba može biti predstavnik svih životinja.
And he's saying, please protect us.
I ona može reći, može nam reći, molimo vas, zaštitite nas.
And he's saying, if you do this, then I will reveal myself, Matsya Avatar. I will reveal myself as Param Brahma.
I Matsya Avatar kaže, ako to učiniš, ona se obraća kralju Satyavrati, i kaže, ako to učiniš, ja ću ti se razotkriti, Param Brahma.
Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam. Perhaps there's some comments.
I thank you very much for making us think and really inciting us to engage in dialogue with the world. Very important. I have a very burning question which was raised to me when I was on a conference, Science and Spirituality, and which has become an upsetting question for me also. It will be a tough question, so... Yes.
Hvala ti puno što si nas inspirisao da razvijamo dijalog sa sličnim grupama koje se bave zaštitom okoliša. Ja ću ti postaviti jedno pitanje koje će biti malo teško, a došlo je kao rezultat mog nedavnog učešća na jednoj konferenciji povezanoj s ovim dijelom.
To make it interesting, I will put it in tough language.
Da bi bilo interesantnije, ja ću pitanje postaviti kroz težak.
Do the members of the Hare Krishna movement perhaps suffer from the perils of indifference by making a double standard?
Uzmemo težak primjer govora, dakle mi kao članovi Hare Krishna pokreta ponekad malo ispaštamo te takozvane duple standarde koje...
Da li patimo od ravnodušnosti? Da li pitanje postavljamo?
Dobro. Nisam još završio to. Mi kao članovi Hare Krishna pokreta koji ispaštamo na neki način dvostruki.
Let me just put it in English, then Krishna Kshetra Swami can think about it while you translate it. You just need to give a summary.
Okay.
No. The thing here is, we say protect the cows when we drink milk. And nowadays, the milk industry is really one of the most cruel industries, and there are videos which can depict that. Now I'm a little bit conditioned. I'm in two minds about this. One is, I think the most ethical thing is to drink only milk from protected cows, which is, when you find this in the West, in India you might find fully protected cows, not just in welfare cows, but protected cows. The other conditioning in my mind is, well, maybe for that poor cows, this is the only, it's a homeopathic drop of milk, really, which the Hare Krishnas drink in comparison to the entire production. But that homeopathic drop will be offered to Krishna, and that's the only good thing which happens. But I'm beginning to sense that this is a justification of my milk greed, this argument.
Maharaj ga je zamolio da sumira, stiže napraviti njegovog pitanja. Na početku je postavio pitanje da li smo mi kao Hare Krishna Bhakte osobe koje imamo dvostruke standarde i naveo je primjer pijenja mlijeka. Mi svi volimo mlijeko, međutim mlijeko koje danas nabavljamo uglavnom dolazi od krava koje su prilično zlostavljanje u uvjetima u kojima se nalaze. Jako je teško doći do mlijeka koje dolazi od ahimsa krava ili krava koje nisu zlostavljanje prilikom svog života, a neće biti ni ubijene nikada i prirodnom će smrću umrijeti. Stoga, možda neko će reći da je to samo jedan mali procenat mlijeka koji mi uzimamo iz te cijele industrije, ali ipak volim da čujem tvoj osvrt na to pitanje.
2 or 3 days ago, here Krishna Goswami discussed this point in his seminar.
Prije 2 ili 3 dana baš Krishna Goswami je diskutirao o toj poanti na svom seminaru.
It was also discussed in a meeting of the European leaders of ISKCON maybe 2 years ago.
Yes. I također je to pitanje diskutirano na konferenciji europskih lidera ISKCON-a prije 2 godine.
And I don't remember the details of the conclusion of that, but it was basically we need to work toward being coming clean, so to say, in the subject.
Ne sjećam se detalja zaključaka s te konferencije, ali mislim da je suština bila da trebamo stremiti ka tome da budemo čisti u pristupu toj problematici.
And what I see is that because more and more devotees are feeling this uneasiness that you expressed, this could lead us to really make some more serious efforts to do what Srila Prabhupada was telling us we need to do.
I ono što ja vidim u zadnje vrijeme, da sve više bakta postaje svjesno tog problema i to bi nas možda moglo dovesti lakše do onoga što je Srila Prabhupada od nas želio.
I can just say beyond that, in my own case, 3 years ago, I was instructed by a doctor, a devotee doctor, stop taking dairy. So I took it seriously, and I've been following ever since. And as a very, I would say, nice side benefit, because I was doing this for health.
Ja mogu samo reći za svoj vlastiti primjer. Prije 3 godine imao sam zdravstvenih problema i fakta. Doktor me je snažno uputio da prestanem koristiti mliječne proizvode i mlijeko i mogu da kažem da je to se odrazilo pozitivno na moje zdravlje.
Is that I feel, how to put it, morally better.
Barem se moralno osjećam bolje.
I feel morally more peaceful with regard to this subject.
I moralno se osjećam mirnije povezano s ovom temom.
But I don't feel self-righteous as a result of this. I just feel that, yes, this is for myself the right thing to do.
Ne osjećam da sam postigao pravdu u društvu time, ali barem za sebe lično mogu da kažem to je prava stvar za mene što sam učinio.
But
No, it's well, many of my God brothers with whom I discuss say, yeah, it's more healthy to not drink dairy, and there's research institute. I've seen that the ability to digest dairy is very poor, you know. But and I'm aware of some of the discussions which went with the seminar, but this is not addressing the question. The question is, what is the position of the cows? It's an ethical question, not a health question. It's also not a human-centric question, but it's an animal-centric question. It must, I think, be dealt with the level of the question itself. Is it that we cannot kill the cows? Is that true? Is it in the scriptures true? Is it unethical? Are they souls? Are they part of Krishna? What if this is true? What do we do at that time? I think that's the question. It's not what is better for me and where do I feel better? The question is entirely on a different camp, so to say. But I don't know what to do because, it's okay that this. Well, that's the question.
okay.
Hvala ti puno na tom odgovoru. Ja sam također u zadnje vrijeme jako mnogo slušao i od svojih drugih dragih godbradera kako mliječni proizvodi ne utiču dobro na naše zdravlje, kako ih je teško probaviti. Također sam upoznat sa time kako je Krishna Maharaj dao svoje seminare i temu koju je govorio o zaštita krava. Međutim, upravo je to moja poenta. Da li mi ovdje govorimo o onome što je dobro za nas, za naše zdravlje, za to kako se mi moralno osjećamo, ili o tome što nam vesko učenje i Šrila Prabhupada od nas traže, to je upravo zaštita krava. Znači, kako se te krave osjećaju koje prolaze sve to što prolazi. Da li se možda ikad zaista pitamo, da li zaista u njima i postoji duša, da li zaista one jesu također dijelići čestica Krišne, da li zaista one jako mnogo pate. Dakle, moje pitanje je bilo skroz na toj strani brige o kravama, ne brige o nama, kao ljudskim bićima.
Sometimes this chair is called the hot seat.
Ponekad je ova stolica zvana Vyasasan također poznata i kao vruća stolica.
For me it is quite simple and straightforward that the cow is not to be killed, the bull is not to be killed. That's our understanding of what is Vedic, and I put it in quotation marks, Vedic culture.
Naravno, za mene je potpuno jasno da se krave ne smiju ubijati i da se bikovi ne smiju ubijati. I to je ono što Vede nalažu, stavljamo to pod navodnike.
Or maybe without the quotation marks, Vedic in the broadest sense of culture of higher knowledge.
Ili čak bez navodnika, Vede kao najšire znanje o višem smislu života.
And so we need to be agents towards bringing that understanding about. We need to be agents for bringing about that understanding.
I mi trebamo naravno biti agenti koji ćemo to znanje prenijeti i do drugih.
And then the rest is detail. We have to see how to do that.
A sve ostalo su dalje detalji, pa da trebamo vidjeti kako ćemo to dalje razrađivati. To u redu.
There is a growing concern in ISKCON, in this matter, into animal ethics and taking milks and the terrible conditions the cows are in. I was just in America and I encountered it. I also was with the in New Vrindavan, where we have ISKCON cow protection, Balabhadra leading it, and speaking about Krishna Darians, and as the Krishna Darians as the only solution, taking milk from protected cows and otherwise not at all. What I missed in the discussion is that, like, Srila Prabhupada's approach seemed so different. It seemed so much that he just pushed milk consumption. One example is that objections were raised to milk that was purchased in America as containing vitamin D and not being of vegetarian origin, and Srila Prabhupada's chalega, as they say in India, don't worry about it, just carry on, whereas even today we would worry about that, right? Srila Prabhupada, that is fish oil, yeah. Okay, fish origin. Then there's the other thing, Satyananda Maharaj phrased that term milk greed, right? Which immediately rung a bell in my mind. What about milk need? Right? Srila Prabhupada seems to speak in his books about milk need, the finer brain tissue, how milk is so important to not only, it's not just a matter of, yes, have some milk from your protected cows, but milk seems to be essential in the way Srila Prabhupada presents it. You can't practically do without, not only for butter and ghee for sacrifice, but in itself for the finer brain tissue and so on. So therefore it seemed that he ignored the plight of the cow, and it seems like that. And it also, when I hear in discussions, because I just heard a 1-hour and passionate lecture by Devamrita Maharaj on the topic, who also is sort of on the vegan side of the issue. I also, whatever. But the point is like, do we require milk? It is often said in these statements that the offering of the milk, from the cow is a small thing. In my mind, it's not a small thing. It's an eternal thing, and everything else is a small thing in terms of time and in terms of suffering. So, from our own small human perspective, it looks very small, right? The offering made. And the suffering of the cow looks very, very big. But from the eternal perspective, the eternal benefit is unlimited. And the other suffering is great, but small on eternity. So could you comment on that side?
Oh, this continues to be a hot seat. Yes.
Should I just summarize it at least? Maharaj je rekao da, naravno, u zadnje vrijeme u iskonu sve više i više vidi narastajućeg koncerna ili zabrinutosti naših članova društva u vezi sa ovom temom koja se tiče i zaštite krava, a iz druge strane mlijeka, da li je ono dobro da ga konzumiramo ako je iz komercijalnih kanala došlo do nas i tako dalje. S druge strane, nedavno sam bio na New Vrindavan farmi koja također je i sjedište kao protection officer za ISKCON, tamo je i Bala Bhadra Prabhu koji se bavi tim pitanjima i tamo smo isto tako razgovarali o tim stvarima, pa smo se prisjetili kako je Šrila Prabhupada čak i prije 50 godina, kada mu je donijeto mlijeko koje je došlo iz komercijalnih kanala i koje je imalo čak i primjesu vitamina D, što je vitamin koji dolazi porijeklom od riba, kada mu je postavljeno pitanje da li ćemo konsumirati to mlijeko, on je rekao, nemojte se opterećivati tim kao stvarima u tom trenutku, samo ga ponudite Krišni i konzumirajte ga. Stoga, danas mi sve više i više obraćamo pažnju na te stvari i volio bih da znam, i Maharaj je kasnije govorio o tome kako je ponuda mlijeka Krišni jako važna. Mi to možemo posmatrati da li je uopšte potrebno nuditi mlijeko Krišni ako dolazi iz takvih izvora, ali s jedne strane to je vječna dobrobit ako nudimo mlijeko Krišni, dok ova patnja ovih životinja, krava u ovom slučaju može izgledati kao privremena patnja. Pa volio da čujem tvoj komentar na to na što je Krishna Kshetra Maharaj rekao da ova stolca postaje još vruća, iako je već do sada bila jako vruća.
So, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Interesantno, zar ne?
Sometimes when something like this comes up, I kind of mentally step back and I see, very interesting phenomenon. The Hare Krishnas are arguing over milk.
I ponekad kada ovakve teme dođu do izražaja, ja sam malo udaljen i razmislim i kažem, interesantan fenomen, Hare Krishna raspravljaju o mlijeku.
It's an interesting sociological phenomenon.
To je interesantan sociološki fenomen.
And I don't think we're going to solve it here.
Mislim da ga nećemo moći riješiti danas i ovdje.
But what I see is that there are very good arguments on both sides.
Da postoje dobri argumenti na obje strane.
And my prayer is that it won't end up that we have two Hare Krishna movements as a result.
I moja molitva je da se nadam da nećemo dobiti dvije frakcije ili čak dva Hare Krishna pokreta podijeljena po tom osnovu.
And it might be, I'm just thinking aloud now, that the solution is in ghee.
I mogla bi biti solucija ili rješenje, sad samo naglas razmišljam, u giju ili pročišćenom maslacu.
Because I remember that your Krishna said that he does take some ghee which is coming from protected cows.
Jer mislim da je Krishna Maharaj rekao da on ipak uzima ponekad pomalo gija koje dolaze od ahimsa krava ili zaštićenih krava.
Which, as he explained, contains all those nutrients which are there in milk, which are there in butter, etc.
I kako je on objasnio, taj gij sadrži sve ključne nutrijente ili hranjive sastojke koji su također prisutni i u mlijeku i u buteru.
And unlike all the other dairy products, ghee is portable.
I za razliku od drugih mliječnih proizvoda, gij je dugotrajan, može se čuvati, neće se pokvariti, može se i prenositi mobilom je.
But to your point about offering of milk from cows who are not protected being of eternal benefit as opposed to the temporary suffering which they're getting.
A kad govoriš o tome da postoji vječna dobrobit u odnosu na krave koje mogu da samo privremeno pate,
this may well be a good point. And on the other side, because that's how it goes, back and forth. On the other side, someone sent me recently something that had been written, something short from Kurma Rupa, the late Kurma Rupa.
Tako se argumenti sa raznih strana mogu slijevati u našu diskusiju. Međutim, nedavno sam dobio nešto što je povezano sa Kurma Rupom, jedno pismo povezano sa Kurma Rupa Prabhuom. Kurma Rupa Prabhu je napisao.
And he puts into quite dramatic form this issue by presenting it as the cow is the mother and the mother is calling out for help.
On je to predstavio na jedan način kao krava je majka i majka poziva za pomoć.
Because of being tortured.
Zbog toga što je bila izložena torturama i mučenjima.
And the devotee responds, I'll help you.
Bhakta kojem se on obraćao, pokojni Kurma Rupa Prabhu, dakle Bhakta kojem se kasnije obratio, rekao ja ću ti pomoći. Of course,
You're getting a lot of help.
As far as I understood, Kurma Rupa Prabhu wrote a letter and devotees responded.
No.
Okay. I understood wrongly. Who is saying I will help you?
Within what he wrote, he's telling a little drama.
Aha, u okviru pisma koje je Kurma Rupa Prabhu napisao, on predstavlja i malu dramu.
And the devotee is responding in this little drama, oh mother, I will help you.
I u toj drami majci kravi koja se obraća za pomoć i kaže pomozite mi, Bhakta odgovara, o majko, ja ću ti pomoći.
I will take some of your milk and I will offer it to the Lord.
Ja ću uzeti malo tvog mlijeka i ponuditi ga Gospodinu.
And thus you will be eternally benefited.
I na taj način ćeš steći vječnu dobrobit.
Well, I don't remember that the mother has a chance to respond.
A šta je majka rekla? Maharaj kaže, ne sjećam se da je majka imala uopšte priliku da odgovori.
But then Kurma Rupa comes in and makes this point, what kind of an answer is this? He said, this is the very minimal, the very least that can be done.
Ali onda Kurma Rupa odgovara, kakav je to odgovor? Pa to je najmanje što se može učiniti.
So, yeah, there's some space in that sense.
Postoji prostor za poboljšanje za obe grupe koje iznose argumente u tom slučaju.
But Maharaj is not finished.
Can we say this? Well, in Gita Nagari, this discussion also took place for a long time. Not only was Devan Ritavarsh there, but also Shrutakirti was there, who was telling us that in one particular temple they were making sweets for the deities, and Shrutakirti put some of the sweets on Prabhupada's plates, and the sweets were made in a vegan way, with all natural ingredients, nuts and some dried fruits and other things. And when Prabhupada saw these sweets, he said, what is this? He said, sweets, Prabhupada. He said, what is this? He said, it's Mahaprasadam from the deities. Right? And then Prabhupada said, why are they making these concoctions? I taught them how to make nice rasgulla. Nice rasgulla. And sandesh and all these sweets, right? And they must be offered to the deity. And then Shrutakirti went on in several rasgulla stories and in temples that had banned sugar, and how Prabhupada was demanding sugar, and they had to buy sugar in an emergency level. Temples that had completely banned sugar. So
Prabhupada is so wonderful.
But Krishna must have rasgulla. Now, as a final comment,
we'll let you have the final.
Yeah. But I was, of course, in the temple president of Vrindavan, and we were having a herd of 350 cows, rapidly growing, and we were doing statistics. And in order to reach our need for milk consumption just for the deities alone, we would have to have the herd grow till over 1,000 cows. And that was really like too much for us to handle. I mean, people would come into my office and say, there's no food for the cows. 350 cows is a lot of. So it was quite a burden. And we were just not able to even provide for the deities from our cow protection. And we were like, and probably still, Vrindavan still is the biggest cow protection temple in India, or in the world. So
thank you for helping us with these reflections. I am going to take the last word and say that the discussion somehow went to cows.
His comments.
If you must.
I'm sorry, you wanted consecutive interpretation, otherwise it would be done wrong.
Yes.
Kad nama Krishna Maharaj je, borim se za svoju službu, prosto. Kad nama Krishna Maharaj je rekao dvije poente. Jedna je priča o Prabhupada i druga je poenta kako su imali, reći ću ovdje poenta. Prva je poenta na Gita Nagari farmi, bila je diskusija između, to su mogli potvrditi Devamrita Maharaj i Šruta Kirti Prabhu, kako su ponudili Prabhupadu nekad neke kuglice smiksane od orašida i suhog voća. I kada je Prabhupad to dobio, bio je jako uznemiren i rekao je, šta je ovo, šta sam vas ja naučio? Ja sam vas naučio, kakve su ovo izmišljotine, ja sam vas naučio da pravite lijepe rasagule i sandeče i slično. I jednostavno rekao da se takve preparacije, koje su jela sa mlijekom, moraju nuditi Krishni. Krishna ne može bez njih. I brzo sumiram sve ovo da bude što kraće. Reći ću drugi dio priče. Maharaj je rekao da je, kao što znamo, vodio hram u Vrindavanu, koji je dan danas najveći hram u kojem se štite krave na svijetu. I imali su toliku potrebu za ponudom preparacija koje imaju porijeklo od mliječnih proizvoda, da čak i njihovih 350 krava koje štite nisu bile dovoljne, da bi samo božanstvima ponudu mogli napraviti kolika je bila potrebna u skladu sa standardima koje su uspostavili, trebalo bi 1000 krava da održavaju. Na što je Krishna Kshetra Maharaj pokušao da kaže nešto i eto.
Yeah, just to say that I appreciate that the discussion went in that direction because it does concern us all. And at the same time, I want to bring it back to the point that I was making, which was about animal testing. And I think this is something. No, we're not going to go there. Sorry. I know, you're going to say Prabhupada said.
I just have an ethical question. Recently I was speaking with a surgeon, and the surgeon was explaining to me how they're using animal membrane and these kind of things for essential operations that are like saving human lives.
Yeah.
So I have an ethical question. I mean, is it permissible to take a lower form of life, an animal life, for saving a human life in the Hare Krishna philosophy?
He is not speaking about using animal testing for cosmetics.
No,
that is bad.
That's not even controversial anymore.
But this is
You really want to make the seat hot, don't you?
No, it is important discussion.
It is an important discussion.
Naš predavač je rekao da, iako vi pokušavate temu odvesti u drugom pravcu, ja ću je ponovo vratiti na svoju izvornu poantu koju sam želio na ovoj lekciji da dam, a to je sprječavanje testiranja na životinjama. I opet je Krishna Maharaj uzeo mikrofon i rekao da postoji jedan drugi primjer koji je nedavno čuo od jednog hirurga, a to je da u namjeri da se spasi ljudski život, ponekad hirurzi ubiju životinju i njenu membranu, neko tkivo sa njenog tijela upotrijebe na čovjeku kako bi mu pomogli. Pitanje je sada koje ti postavljam, da li je etično, da li je moralno ubiti drugo, takozvano živo biće niže razine, niže svijesti, da bi se mi, ljudi, spasili. I da li je to nešto što Hare Krishna filozofija odobrava? I Maharaj je dobro rekao, predavač Maharaj, da je ovo mjesto još postalo vruće nego do sada.
I will make a simple answer.
Ja ću ti dati kratak, jednostavan odgovor.
It's up to the individual.
Do pojedinca.
If the person whose life might be saved in this way is given the choice, then I would say that is that devotee's choice.
Ako se osobi čiji život može na taj biti način spašen pruži prilika da bira, ako recimo je to bakte u pitanju, onda je to odluka tog svakog pojedinog bakte.
With that, thank you all so much for your kind attention. And of preaching in Novi Sad.
I propovijedanje u Novom Sadu.
Shri Jagannath Subhadra Baladeva ki Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Bhakti Vaishnavinda ki Gaur Premanande.
Hare Krishna, dragi brate, molim vas da ostanete.